Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Factorio Space Age video. I'm Exterminator, and thank you for joining me. And it's been a while since I've done a video, over a week. I am trying to get back into the swing of things here, and I figured I would start off with doing a kind of tips and tricks tutorial and guide for each planet, and we're going to start with Vulcanus here. Now, there's several things we're going to cover, so this is going to be split into a couple, or a few rather, sections. We're going to start with just like what resources are available here. Then we're going to go into what you should bring, my recommendations on kind of the like starting kit, if you will, that you should have when you leave Novice. All these items you should be putting on your ship and then bringing them to Volcanus. And then lastly, we're going to kind of go into like the challenges of this planet. So starting off, I just want to mention, in my opinion, in my experience, Volcanus is the easiest of all of the planets. It's not without challenges, it's not a cakewalk, but it is easier overall, in my opinion. And, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to go there first, but just worth throwing out there. Now, this is a very small starter base. I have certainly built bigger bases than this. I played with Colonel Will, and I played on my own with other saves, and I have larger bases than this, but this was a good one to show because this one, I think, doesn't give too much away. Like, I don't want to just spoil the whole thing for you, and where we just show like massive processes of every possible thing. But we're going to get into this. So what resources are available on Volcanus? Well, there's several new resources and some that we're familiar with. So the first one is calcite, and this is a very abundant resource. So we have calcite patches. It is an ore, and it's kind of all over the place. You can see we have no shortage of calcite here at all. And I didn't really bump up. I think I slightly bumped up the resource size maybe, but I don't think I bumped up the frequency. So this is basically just how abundant it is what it looks like. And then we also have tungsten, and we're going to touch more on tungsten later, kind of in the challenges part, but tungsten is a very important and very kind of, I don't want to say expensive resource itself, but it is used to make very expensive and powerful things. And then we have these sulfur fields, or sulfur vents, I like to call them, which is basically you place pump jacks on them, and this is where you're going to get sulfur. There's no oil. You do everything with like all kind of oil, liquid gas processes with sulfur on Volcanus, and you pump that, and this is going to lead into some things here shortly. And then there's lava. Now, lava by itself does not do anything. However, when you put it into a foundry, you can get resources from it. So I am counting it as a resource because you do need it to make, on Volcanus at least, you do need it to make, other more basic materials like iron, copper, stone. You can see here we're actually just pumping lava directly into these machines to make other things, because this is kind of creating this molten version of these resources. So I'm considering lava a resource as well. And then we have coal and stone, which we're familiar with. Coal, there's actual coal patches. Stone, there's, stones you can mine, but also stone is a byproduct of basically all of these processes. As you can see here, I have chests of it. So while you can't actually mine stone directly like with miners, you do get a huge amount of it, to the point where I'm actually in some cases throwing it back in the lava. And I would generally suggest doing that. It's basically infinite. Like, you get it with all of these processes, and you can see 15 stone for every craft of this. It adds up really quick, and it's kind of difficult sometimes to find a sink for it. And I would almost consider that part of the challenges section of this video again, which will be at the end. But it's very minor, right? Like, you can just throw it back in the lava. It's not really that difficult of a challenge, but it is a little bit, because if you don't find something to do with it, then it's going to back up and stop all of your processes. So that's kind of what we had to work with on Volcanus. Now, in terms of what you should actually bring, this is somewhat subjective. I'm not saying this is an exhaustive list. I'm not saying you absolutely have to bring these things. It is up to you, based on what you kind of want to experience, right? If you want like an actual, like, if you really want a challenge, you could come here with nothing. It is possible to go to a planet with absolutely nothing and still get back off the planet, except for a Quello. but the first three planets, the Vulcanus, Fulgora, and Gleba, the devs designed them so that you could actually go there without any materials and still make your way up and get off the planet. So you could do that if you want. If you really want a difficult challenge. If you want to just come here and like kind of try to get the things this planet unlocks for you as quickly as possible and like go through the processes but not have it be a huge grind from like nothing, then I would suggest a few things which you should already have probably at this point. Like if you have unlocked the tech, obviously on Novice to come to a planet and build a space platform, you should, I think, have all of these things. One or two you maybe would have to do another research for, but it really wouldn't be very difficult. So I have my inventory here, basically everything I would bring here, ideally not the big miners because I meant to put miners in here, but we have some really basic stuff. And this is kind of like the really basic things are things that you could leave off. Like if you don't have room on your space platform or don't feel like launching that many rockets where the stuff up to your, traveling platform from Novice initially, you could leave some of these out. Like you can pretty easily get like belts and inserters and power poles. Once you get here, it does make things a little harder without them, just I would say less convenient, but it's certainly doable. But if you do have plenty of room, you don't mind launching, 50 rockets or whatever, then I would, obviously the basics. But then the things that I think are really important, a tank, and we're going to touch on this in the challenges part, solar panels, because they are extra effective on Volcanus. You can see here 300% power output down there on the bottom, 240 kilowatts opposed to the 60 that they normally give. So this is going to be your initial way to generate power, right? So I would bring solar panels. I would combine accumulators with those as you would on Novice, just so you can actually power things at night, because there is a day-night cycle here. But during the day, these are going to give you significantly more power than they would on Novice. So solar panels, and then I would bring steam turbines. If you have unlocked nuclear, which, you certainly can do. It's actually, it's just red, green, blue. If you've unlocked this, I would definitely bring steam turbines because we actually have a process here, which I will go into in just a second after I finish the other material suggestions. We have a process here where we can very easily get steam directly. So we don't even need to bring reactors. We don't need to bring heat pipes or heat exchangers. If you bring steam turbines, this is going to be a pretty easy step up from solar going directly to, an actual very large amount of power potential. And this is one thing that I forgot when I came here in this particular playthrough. This was like one of the first times I came here, and it is something I forgot, and I wish I had considered or remembered because it would have made my life way easier to bring these. Pump jacks, obviously for the sulfur. Again, you could make these here. They're not that complicated, but it would just save you some trouble. Some smelters of some sort. I say steel or electric, but of course there is stone like easily accessible here. So you could leave out the smelters. That would be like the easiest thing probably to make here when you land because you just need some stone. You can make stone furnaces really easily. Some assembly machines, you do need those to make things. You can see they're scattered around. I still use those here. Chem plants, which are going to be important, and these do kind of combine with the steam turbines. You do have to do the process to get the steam in a chem plant. So, this is going to be quite important. The carbon is from here, not something you bring. And then this is, I would say, more optional. Personally, in my experience, I have found it helpful to bring a rocket silo or the materials to make a rocket silo and then the materials to make one rocket just in case. Maybe there's an emergency on Novice and my base is being completely eaten or something and I don't have the ability even with remote view to save it. It's nice to be able to just put down a rocket silo and launch one emergency rocket, right? And get back on your platform and go back if you need to. Again, this stuff here is more optional. If you don't want to give yourself that like escape, then you could do that, or if you don't have room, you could leave these out. But personally, I found this is just kind of a nice peace of mind to have these materials just to launch one rocket. I mean, you can bring more, of course, if you want, but and then some sort of like gun ammo. I'm choosing uranium, but piercing ammo would work too. And then uranium cannon shells, I think, are very important for this. Same with poison capsules. and gun turrets. And this is like kind of the bare minimum for me. Again, you could leave some of this out. You could add extra stuff. It's up to you. I would add in miners, obviously. But you know, I guess I would also bring a cargo landing pad. Is another important thing. You can do this without that. You can drop items from a platform directly. Just they'll just land on the ground, scattered around. But I would bring a cargo landing pad as well. Is the other pretty crucial thing, I think. But you can, you don't have to bring pipes. You could. It's very easy generally to get iron, but you could bring pipes and stuff. But this is kind of like the essentials, in my opinion. Now, let's go into the challenges. So I say Vulcanus is the easiest because there's really only one challenge outside of the general production challenges. There's some processes that are a little bit annoying to me, or maybe not annoying, but a little bit kind of more in depth, like this process here of doing coal liquefaction with calcite. I mean, that's straightforward enough. But then basically the end result here is we're trying to get plastic, and we have to go through like 3 steps to get the plastic since we don't have, oil or petroleum directly. So, I mean, this is like a production challenge, but in terms of actual challenges outside of your base, it's kind of twofold. I mean, initially it may be a power issue, depending how much you bring, or if you didn't bring solar panels or something, you're gonna have a bad time if you didn't bring any power at all. But so there's that. But then the main ones are tungsten itself, getting it because as far as I have experienced, it does not spawn in your starting area, at least not for me. Maybe I'm very unlucky. But even if it does, it's not going to be a ton. So you likely will need to go find some. And tungsten is a lot rare. As you can see, I have a tungsten patch here, and this is actually, we have 2 small ones down here. But in this one, but when you compare to like the calcite amounts or the sulfur amounts, it's not super abundant. And in my experience, it's always been within the enemy territory. And these are the territories of the enemies here, which are the worms, the devastators. And it's kind of, you can see these outlined in a box. So they have a patrol area. And if you go in here and build stuff in here, specifically building in their area, it will basically aggro them and they will come after your stuff and you. So it's kind of an interesting, you can see like this little blob is where I last spotted him. Same with this here. It's kind of an interesting kind of combination between like peaceful mode and not peaceful mode, where they will not bother you if you don't bother them, and they will not come outside their territory. So you are safe here. This is what makes this one of the easiest planets, in my opinion. Like, if you don't mess with their territory, you're never going to have problems with enemies here. They never venture out of it unless you aggro them. So, like, they will go out of it if you go in there and build stuff, but if you don't actually bother them, they're never going to just, like, on their own come out here and start attacking your base unless you've done something to cause that within their territory. But assuming tungsten is in one of their territories, you're going to have to clear out a devastator. And let's just hope that it is a small one, because the medium ones and the large ones are extremely hard to kill early on. Like later, once we get like rail guns and all that stuff, it's going to be not that difficult. But if you're coming here with just some like novice tech, you're going to have a really hard time killing medium or large ones, in my experience. Mediums possible, large ones I have not succeeded with basic novice tech killing them. So smaller ones usually are what you're going to find right around your starting area, and that is what the tank and the uranium shells and the poison and the uranium rounds are for. And I'm going to show you how to do this here. So for the last bit of this video, I'm going to show you actually fighting one of these and my strategy. There are multiple ways to kill these. My favorite is a tank with cannon shells. Uranium cannon shells specifically help a ton because of the extra damage. And then turret spam, and then poison, because they have less resistance to that. But before we get into that, I'm just going to walk you through really quick that steam process I talked about, because that is pretty important for your power. Now, initially I was doing steam turbine or steam engines, which you certainly could do. But, if you've unlocked that research for nuclear power, you might as well bring turbines, since they're significantly better. and still only require steam. So what you can do is really, you can get this pretty early because all you need is this acid neutralization uh, here, which opened our Factoriopedia, which you just get from calcite processing. This is what unlocks it. And all you have to do to unlock this calcite processing is mine calcite, which is going to be one of the first things you do. And then that unlocks multiple other things. So you can do steam condensation, this is the coal liquefaction, or the acid neutralization. Well, we don't really have water here, at least not easily. So our best bet is going to be this. So all you need to do is mine or pump some of this sulfuric acid directly from these vents and then send it into a chem plant, and that's what the chem plants are for to start with, and combine it with calcite, and you're going to get steam. So you get 10,000 steam for every 1 calcite and every 1,000 sulfuric acid. And that's all you need because, you know, we're kind of, it's so programmed in our brains, like for nuclear power, okay, well, we need a reactor, we need heat pipes, we need heat exchangers, because that's what it's always needed. And obviously on Novice, that's what it needs. But here, you don't need any of that. So it makes nuclear power so much easier, which isn't really even nuclear power at this point. It's basically just steam power. And so it makes basically steam turbine power so much easier and cheaper because you just need the turbines since you're getting the steam directly. And it already comes out of this at 500 degrees Celsius. So like that's already good to go, right? And you can see here, the consumption is 60 a second. So, you know, if you do the math, 10,000 steam, that can supply quite a lot of these. I mean, 60 a second is still a lot. You know, that's 3,600 a minute. So, you know, but each one of these is like almost 6 megawatts. So this is powering my entire base right now. But that's how that works. So it can be a pretty early thing that you get, and it's just going to be, I think, easier than spamming down huge solar fields and accumulators to try to power your base as you grow it. But that covers basically the actual like prep and base prep beginnings for Volcanus that I'm going to cover. Again, I'm not going to go into like much bigger bases because I don't want to spoil everything. You know, I don't want to just show you a base and be like, here, build this. You know, basically, I mean, if you've built on Novice to the point of getting a platform and coming here, you certainly have the base building skills, I believe, to build a base here, right? Because that part isn't all that difficult. And it's fun to discover that stuff on your own, for sure. Like, I had a lot of fun discovering all the recipes in Foundries the first time and, like, figuring out how to route them, and the pumping and the speeds are crazy. So that was a lot of fun. But let's go ahead and end this video with going into some combat with one of these worms. So I'm going to do a quick cut here and go find one, so you're not, you know, waiting for me to run around, and I will see you back here in a second. Alrighty, welcome back. So we have found a small demolisher here, and it is patrolling the border. Basically, as far as I can tell, they patrol just the edge of their territory, even though, you know, it encompasses this whole thing. So this allows you to kind of set up where you want to fight them. This would not be a good area to fight because I can't do anything with this lava in the way, and there's obviously cliffs and all that. And we're going to set up over here to the right because there's more of a clear area. Now you'll notice this kind of smoky trail behind him. You do not want to run in this, and he's going to kind of make this larger out in front of him too when he comes to attack. This is going to slow you down significantly, even with power armor and such. So you want to really try to avoid you want to avoid being in that. So we're going to go ahead and set up here. So I'm going to clear these, and we're going to grab our uranium ammo, and we're going to grab our poison. And you can see the resistance is, poison is 50%, explosion is like basically 100, and impact is 100. Physical is 50% though. So we can do some pretty decent physical damage with these turrets and with our cannon shell. So I'm gonna go ahead and set up these turrets here, and we're just gonna fill these with ammo. This has obviously made him angry because I've built things in his territory. So now I'm going to get in the tank and prepare here. I'm going to give some fuel and some cannon shells. And basically, you need to be prepared to sacrifice your turrets because it is likely that they're going to die. But just as long as you and your tank don't die, you should be in pretty good shape. So basically, you want to shoot at the head if possible, because the head is where the majority of the damage is. Now, I ran over my tank, and you can see it's dead. Now I have ammo upgrades. I have a couple infinite ammo upgrades, but you could do this too. And you can see how fast that was. That was actually, if you have uranium ammo in these turrets, it is incredibly easy to kill the small ones. The medium ones, a bit harder, but like I said before, still doable. The large worms are, even with this, going to give you a bit of trouble. But you can see I did get some upgrades, so you could take the time to prep for this and really get some upgrades. It's not even that many. I only got like through 6 here, basically. So I guess 7 too, because this one's 8. But I only did like one of these space science researches, and that's for the physical damage, which affects all of the ammo and the cannon shells and the turrets, of course. And that made that actually fairly easy. But again, shooting at the head is really important, because that's where it's going to take the most damage. Shooting it from the side or something is going to make it a lot more difficult. You definitely want to try to aim for the head and place your turrets in front of it. And you can see it did still kill some of my turrets. I mean, I ran over these like a dummy, but these it killed with its kind of cloud output in front of it. And explosions, it shoots off explosions too. I don't know if you could see, but that was pretty straightforward. And then we cleared this territory and could, get this tungsten. So I think the takeaway from this is, if you want to be able to get your tungsten easily and build up your base quickly here, just come prepared. Take the time. And again, this is definitely doable with piercing ammo. It would have taken longer. I have done it with piercing ammo, and I think that's actually what I killed the first one with, that I got my tungsten. And it did take quite a bit longer. I definitely lost most of my turrets and like half of my tank health doing that when I just used piercing ammo. But again, totally doable. But if you just unlock uranium processing, you don't even need the 235. You really just need the uranium mining, which is quite simple. Now this one is a bit more expensive, but again, it's only novice pack, so you certainly can get this, and it will make your life significantly easier. And then it just requires the 238, which is, once you get the processing, that's very easy to get. And you can come here and knock out these worms pretty quick. And there we go. That is Volcanus. That is, I think, why I consider it the easiest planet, because there are enemies. If you're not careful, they will definitely kill you in your base. But if you are careful and prepared, it's not too much of a challenge. But that is going to do it here. I think the last thing I'm going to touch on that I did forget to mention earlier in the prep supplies is bringing an armor. It helps a ton if you have a power armor of some sort with legs and shields and robots or roboports, which does bring me to the last thing I did forget in my list here, is construction robots. I would bring logistic robots too and some roboports. That is, I think, less important. You can do this without that for sure, but the construction bots will just help you build out your base and stuff if you have a power armor. So I would throw at least a stack of those into your space platform to come here. But thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope you found this helpful as kind of an introductory, planning guide, I guess, to Volcanus. Maybe help you think about some things to bring that you maybe didn't consider, or demonstrating how to kill the worms if you haven't done that yet, or if you have done it and struggled, maybe this will show it can actually be fairly easy. But if you have any questions or thoughts, leave them below. I definitely always appreciate your feedback, and if you did enjoy and found it helpful, a like is appreciated as well. And if you are new and not already subscribed, feel free to keep up with all future content. But until next time, I look forward to seeing you all, and do take care.